I look to the side of him and Al Roker appears. And he's like giving the weather. Hi, my name is Sydnee Washington, and this is the story of the first and the last time I did shrooms. It was like a hot summer day. I'm in this room with my roommate at the time. TV is super boring, right? It was just like regular reality TV. And we're like, man, we gotta find something to do. He's like, hey, I have mushrooms. And I've never done mushrooms before. And I'm like, I don't know, should I really be interested in this? But I've done cat tranquilizer before, so it's fine. He gives me the mushrooms, and he's like, don't take a lot, just take a little since this is your first time. But I'm a G, like I'm a grown woman. I'm like, no, don't give me the kids menu. Give me the adult size mushrooms that I'm supposed to be taking. He's like, okay. So the mushrooms are inside of me, and I'm talking to my roommate, and my roommate is always late with the rent. And for some reason, I was like, let's talk about this right now. Let's get it out in the open. He's like, listen, I'm always late with the rent because I'm low-key unemployed. So most of the times I'm giving you whatever I can. And like something in my heart was like, damn, he's really doing bad. Like, why am I giving him such a hard time? And then all of a sudden, I look to the side of him and the walls look like they're melting. And Al Roker appears. And he's like giving the weather. And I was like, is Al Roker the weatherman? I thought he talked about news and current events. But so I'm tripping at Al, and then all of a sudden I give him a high five because I'm like, he's Al Roker. He's like legendary. I have to respect because he's been a friend of the family for years. That's not true, but I just felt like that when I was on mushrooms. So this huge fan that's got lint all over it is spinning, and the walls are melting, and I look into the fan, and the fan turns into some kind of monster, some like big mouth monster with like weird dog ears and no eyes. And I'm freaking out because I was like, the fan needs eyes, and I'm telling my roommate that. I'm like, the fan doesn't have eyes, and I'm really upset. It's really scaring me. And so then he takes his hand and touches the fan and puts 2 eyes on the fan. So I'm going nuts because I was like, wait, where did he get those eyes from? You can't pay the rent, but you have money for eyes? So I look at the fan, and something in the fan reminds me of my ex, because my ex is just spewing out dust and has dog ears, so I'm getting into it. My roommate is looking at me like, oh, she's tripping. Because he's done mushrooms before, so he's laughing. He's not making a big deal of it. But I'm like in another world. And then I look at the TV. The TV is still on. The TV looks like it has a big hole in it. And I'm like, I just bought that TV. Where did this hole come from? So then my roommate is all into this trip. So he's like, oh, so let's call the place. Let's call Best Buy. So I'm freaked out. I'm tripping on mushrooms. I call Best Buy up. I'm like, Best Buy, I have a hole in my TV. I just bought it. I don't have the receipt, but I'm bringing it now. So I unplugged the TV. I'm like, we're going to Best Buy. And then he's like, all right, you're tripping, like you're for real tripping, and we're not going anywhere. You have to stay in the room. So he closes the door and locks the door. And I'm like, oh my God, my roommate is keeping me hostage. And it's hot. Like I'm like I have makeup on. My eyebrows are melting off of my face. My hair is falling out. My face is falling off. My ex-boyfriend is telling me that my feet smell. It's just a lot going on with these mushrooms. And I was like, cat tranquilizer has never done this to me. Like I'm just sticking to K. That's it. So I go in my closet. I'm in my closet that's a mess. I didn't put nothing on the hanger. Like the hangers, my clothes are on the hangers, but halfway on. So then I'm looking at the hanger, and the hanger turns into a liger. I don't know if is that a real thing? But at the time I was like, that's a liger. That's a tiger and a lying liar. Is that a liger? A lying tiger, that's what it is. So my clothes are halfway on the hanger, and it starts caressing me. And I was like, oh, I feel safe here. This is where I need to be. So I just stay in the closet, and I lock myself in the closet for a good hour and a half. And I come out of the closet, and he's like, are you good? I was like, I don't know. But somehow he starts talking to me about how he doesn't have money. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I understand you don't have to pay me rent for a whole month. So somehow I get out of mushrooms and I'm in the hole, like $800, because I have to keep my word. He doesn't have to pay rent. I'm freaked out. I've been in the closet for an hour and a half and I'm still hot. So that was the first and last time I've ever done mushrooms.
Tales from the...
No! I'm getting fucking attacked by a swarm of spirits! Hi, my name's Duncan Trussell. You should be careful when you take penis envy mushrooms, especially if we have the same mushroom dealer. This is 2011. I was with someone I'd been seeing for a short time and she'd never taken mushrooms. So I'm like, let's drive up to the desert. We'll take mushrooms. Don't worry, I'll be your guide. You know, I'm sure the ride up there I was giving her some awful psychedelic Jesus style ear beating about what mushrooms are and what she could expect and the healing that would come her way. And these mushrooms I had obtained from a drug dealer. He told me the name of the mushrooms was penis envy. And I remember hating that. You don't want to tell the day, like, yeah, these are penis envy mushrooms. Like, these mushrooms are named after, like, the Freudian hang-up where women wish they had dicks. This drug dealer had warned me, don't fuck around with these. These were a spore print from Terrence McKenna and Dennis McKenna's private collection. Terrence McKenna and Dennis McKenna are essentially gods in the psychedelic community. And I just didn't believe him. We got to this spa. There was this cool collision of like new age healers. And one of them had told me the place was an energy vortex, which means I guess you only need to take like half the dose of the drug that you're gonna take there. We get there and I take the mushrooms. My date takes the mushrooms. And within 10 minutes, something starts happening that has never happened to me before on mushrooms. I'm looking down at my hands on the bed and my fingers are spaghettifying. Like you've probably heard of what happens if you go into a black hole. This was happening to my fingers. My date is like, when am I gonna start feeling it? And I'm like, I don't know. We walk out of the hotel room and I hear a voice in my head. And the voice in my head says,
"We are the eternal guardians of the universe, and we are going to do deep work on you today."
Can we do deep work on me another day? Because I was hoping for just more of like a kind of, fun laugh trip, not deep work, voices in your head. I told my date, I'm like, I'm just going to go lay down for a second. And I'm laying on this lawn chair. The sun is setting. What I'm about to say sounds like something someone who's never taken a psychedelic would say. It's like the kind of thing when the cop came to your school and was like, if you take acid, you're gonna see dragons, Bigfoot is gonna be holding your mom's head in one hand and her tits in the other, and it's gonna shake them at you. And that's what drugs do. No, this happened. I'm looking at this now alien landscape, hyperdimensional colors, everything is melting, and standing on a tree branch is a gnome. It's like my subconscious was just being fucking lazy and is like, okay, let's just show him a fucking yard gnome. Or, because I was on mushrooms and it expanded my third eye, I was literally seeing a gnome, and whoever made yard gnomes was just being hyper realistic because that's how they fucking like to dress. I don't know. Suddenly it realizes I can see it. It looks at me in the same way like when you're at a restaurant and you see like a celebrity and they catch you looking at them and they're just sort of annoyed, like, ugh, another fucking high asshole at the spa watching me watch the fucking sunset. I've been rejected so many times. I've eaten hot bowls of shit on stage, but to be rejected by a fucking gnome, that hurts. And I'm trying to deal with the fact that I'm seeing a gnome. If you do see Bigfoot, you're fucked. Because for the rest of your life, you're someone who saw Bigfoot. Which means that when you run into somebody, if they bring up Bigfoot, you either have to be a coward or tell them what happened, which means for the rest of your life, they're gonna think you're absolutely insane. Because if you run into people who've encountered Bigfoot, a piece of you is like, okay, man, okay. Oh yeah, no, I'm sure there's a completely undiscovered primate in the Pacific Northwest. Similarly, when you see a gnome, you're realizing like for the rest of your life, you're gonna have to like be the asshole at the parties. Like, you know, gnomes are real, man. And you can see them when you're on mushrooms, the penis envy, what, you heard of them? So my brain is like working through all of this when I feel something like jump into my body. And I realize that there's some kind of entities swimming through me. Meanwhile, by the way, my date, she's next to a tree having the best trip of all time. She's laughing. I can hear her saying, it's so beautiful. The world is just so beautiful. I'm like, no! I'm getting fucking attacked by a swarm of spirits. But I start praying in my head, please God protect me. And then suddenly there's a sense of like a maternal energy, like shoos them away and like embraces me. When I opened my eyes again, I'd started coming down. And that is pretty much the last time I took a substantial dose of mushrooms. Listen, kids, here's the moral of the story. If you're gonna take them with somebody, ask the person, what would you do if I shit my pants? Don't even ask, just shit your pants in front of them. And if they act weird, don't take mushrooms with them. Okay, cool. That's it. Great.
We got her ending.
Tales from the
I'm having these like kids from like 12 years old to teenagers coming up to me and wanting pictures with me, and I'm tripping balls. Hi, I'm Brandon Rogers, and I'd like to talk about the first time I did mushrooms. I think most people have not done mushrooms, so I think the protagonist at the beginning of the story, myself who hasn't done them, is quite a relatable character already. And if you have done mushrooms, well, he's relatable still, so let's proceed. I was 28, and I was very depressed one day. One of my actor friends gave me a bag of mushrooms. Old woman. You never expect old people to have a bag of mushrooms. I have a friend of mine, we'll call him Logan, because that's his name. He was a shaman for me in this experience. Any drug, you name it, he's put it in his body, snorted it, or put it in his ass. So he said, all right, well, first of all, you gotta do it in a place you feel safe. I live in Los Angeles, and for most people, including myself, it's a shit place. It's basically a forest of concrete and assholes. I told him, I feel safe at my parents' house. And conveniently, they were out of town. So we drove 6 hours to Livermore, where I'm from. I used the house key, let myself in, and next thing you know, we're mashing mushrooms and making tea. We decided to go for a walk. Everyone's front lawns were the exact shade of Mountain Dew, and the sky was like someone colored it in with a goddamn highlighter. I felt like my soul. I felt like my true me, and I think all of us question whether we're good or bad people. Everyone teeters on this. We all know there's no such thing. We're comparing ourselves to things that don't exist. Everything that made me me, everything that I've learned since the day of birth was cracked to the core like dropping a goddamn jawbreaker. And in the middle of it was the soul I was born into this planet as. Just me, uninfluenced by anything. And I just looked into the sky and realized humor is what I was here to do. And where I grew up, there's a river, a creek bed, where homeless people live. And so we went to the grocery store, and I'm not fucking paying for shit. Not that I was too high to. I was just too high to care to. Money is a construct. I shouldn't have to give these papers to that stranger so that that person who's hungry can have something to eat. We took all this food and we gave it to these homeless people. We went down there and we just gave it to them. It's a victimless crime, you know, especially when you're on mushrooms. After that, we went to a trampoline park. And when I was there, I forget kids in high school go to these places, and I forget that that's my audience. And so I'm having these like kids from like 12 years old to teenagers coming up to me and wanting pictures with me, and I'm tripping balls. And I knew that if their parents knew that I was taking pictures with their kids tripping on mushrooms, they wouldn't be happy about that. And that's sort of where the high started to come down. I think that mushrooms, they're a wonderful thing that should be celebrated and conserved. You don't want to just plow through it like a college girl. You want to marry it. Weed is the college girl, you know. And if you marry your college girl, great. But my wife is gonna be mushrooms, and I only want to celebrate her or see her once in a blue moon.
Tales from the